good day, or hot day. Welcome to Hiking with Anderson. We're continuing in the series on the moral law. We've come to moral law 7, which is about sex and love, or marriage and the good. And we'll think about what those are. We've looked already in the previous video on how to derive the moral law, and now we're going to go over the origin and the nature of this moral law, the main concepts that give us moral law 7. The origin of marriage and the good, these ideas, is that the origin of our being is from the sexual union of our parents. Everybody comes from that, comes from the sexual union of their parents, male and female. And then it's through the nurture of our being by our parents that the good is achieved. Right? Everyone's born ignorant and they need to be taught. We saw that in moral law 5. And we have to be nurtured in our being. So there's the origin in the sense of the beginning through the union of male and female. And then there's the nurture, the upbringing by those who bring you into life. They'll raise you ordinarily, right? You might speak about someone else might not be raised by their biological parents, might be raised by somebody else, and call that person their parent because that person taught them about what is good and how to live. And so we have both of those. And marriage involves that duty to raise in the knowledge of good those we bring into life. You have that obligation. So the origin is that way. No one can get around that. Whatever else one does with their life, they came from the union of male and female. So now the nature. What about the nature of sex and love, marriage and the good? Well, sex is a sign and a seal of love. What does that mean? They're related to each other. When we disconnect them, we're going to see this in the applications. When we disconnect sex and love, what happens? But ordinarily we understand that sex and love go together. They're a sign, or sex is a sign of love. It's not the same as love. It's not to be taken as the reality, and some people make that mistake. But because of the fallenness of the world, they're sometimes broken and divided. And so we can't always assume they're together. Sex doesn't mean love, but it's a sign of love. What that means is that the physical union is a natural sign of a spiritual union. So the first point was sex is a sign and seal of love. Second point, under nature, is that the physical union is a sign of the spiritual union. They symbolize each other. We're not just bodies. We also have a mind or soul or spirit. And we unite ourselves physically. We're also uniting our mind or our soul, our spirit. We have that union. And so again, what happens when you disconnect that, if you try to treat someone just like they're only a body, or treat yourself like you're only a body, we'll come to that in the applications. Third, a physical union and a spiritual union together is a full union. So that's what a full union counts as. There'd be no more than that. And trying to divide them takes away from that union. But putting them together, body and soul, is a full union, the two becoming one. And so, 4, a full union is a union of persons. Again, not just bodies or somehow impersonal bodies, impersonal actions, try to disassociate the personal from the behavior. No, a full union involves the union of persons. Point 4. And then point 5, a full union of two persons is monogamous and lasting. So when you have a union, the physical union, you can think about the symbolism, the physical symbolism, two people coming together, and that's the connection of two people, not 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You have two people coming together in this union, and because this is the expression of love, love is lasting, so this union is lasting and isn't destroyed. There'd be no reason to stop loving the other, seeking the good for the other. So it's a union of two persons, and it's lasting. And 6, a full union is a union of marriage. That's what that is. That's what that's called. Marriage is that lasting union, seeking the good for another with that physical and spiritual union that is a full union of persons. And so 7, love in marriage seeks the good for the other and with the other. That physical union brings others into life, into being. And then there's a duty and obligation of those two parents to raise that child to know the good. So there's the love in marriage for these two that are in the union, and love for those they bring into being. And that love is always the same thing. It's not simply a warm feeling towards the other to hope that they're happy, because they might be happy in something that is not actually good for them, but love for the other and seeking what is good for them, and teaching the children what is good for them. So love in marriage. And there might be many attempts, and we'll look at these in the applications, many attempts to disconnect love and marriage, or to reorder marriage in some other way, because of a different definition of love. But if we've got the definition of love as seeking the good for the other, then that takes us all the way back to moral law 1. We'd have to think about all of this in relationship to the previous moral laws. So sign and seal of love. So we talked about sign and sealing. Let me add seal. Seal is like you're signing a contract. You seal the contract. You put a stamp on it. It's official. So sex is the sign and seal of love. It symbolizes love, and this says is the official seal on loving the other. You ought to love the other. So that gives us the moral law. Marriage is to achieve the good. We can't disconnect marriage and the good. Any discussion of what marriage is apart from the good, or not knowing what the good is, setting aside the question, I don't know what the good is, but let's talk about marriage, won't understand marriage either. So marriage is to achieve the good. We ought to love the other. And there's an order to marriage which protects it, which we'll look at. There's an order to thinking about how to get married and protect marriage. So as we think about marriage, the first question is simply this: do you know what is good? That'd be the first step in the order of protecting marriage. Do you know what is good? And can you seek the good for the other? If you don't know what is good, or you have no track record of being able to seek the good for another, then what would make you think you're ready to talk about marriage? You have to have some proof of those things. So that takes us all the way back to, as I said earlier, moral law 1. Do you know what is good? What is the highest good? And what is eternal? Talk about those things will help understand and structure our thinking about marriage. So thanks for joining me on Hiking with Anderson. See you next time.